October the 14th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Ingert.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Mills, absent. Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We do have a quorum. And just to let you know, Ms. Hill, I was told that Mr. Mills may be just a few minutes late, so he should be here. He just walked, oh, all right. We'll let him get in, and we'll make him stand at attention as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and let the record reflect Mr. Mills is now with us. We have no presentations and awards this evening or personal appearances, so we'll turn to the staff for a report. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, in your packet this evening was a written report for the month of September. A couple things I wanted to highlight to you all. We did have 9 permits issued this past month for residential construction, so that was a good number to see for the month of September. Wanted to provide a few updates on some active construction projects. The multi-tenant building there next to the scooters in the Raymer Galleria. If you all may have seen, they're making some pretty substantial progress with masonry block exterior framing. Pretty well underway on that project. A lot of movement going on at the Chick-fil-A site across the street there as well. They've passed the concrete and asphalt improvements in the parking lot and are also doing the kind of brick facade on the exterior of that building as well. In addition to some interior improvements that are also going on. Relative to the expansion and remodel of Walmart, the interior remodel is, for the most part, wrapped up. I don't know where anything is in that store anymore, so they've done a good job of reorganizing it and kind of refreshing it. And then relative to the expansion that they're working on, they're currently still in the rough-in process with that, so still a lot of work to do on their expansion. And then last but not least, I just wanted to announce, we did finally issue the first 3 home permits in the Parkside subdivision to a new builder that's new to Raymore, that's Hearthside Homes. We issued 3 of those permits in September, and then a 4th one here this month. So it'll be good to finally see some home construction going on over in Parkside. That will conclude my staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Anyone have any questions of Mr. Gress? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Mr. Gress, just to refresh my memory, the Parkside development was the development that was delayed or abandoned because of the landfill threat. Am I correct?
That's correct.
And so it would seem that our successful fight against the landfill is showing an economic resurgence for us.
That is also correct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone? Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you give us an update on 163rd Street? It looks like it's really, really close.
I will give you what I can. I might defer to Mr. Salisbury. I know it's nearing the substantial completion. I'll let Mr. Salisbury give any updates on the actual.
So the surface of 163rd Street, or the last lift of asphalt, should be done here in the next few weeks or so. It'll be done before winter. They still have water line work to do and street lights as well, but they are planning to have all that done by this fall. So.
Okay.
If I could dovetail off of that.
Yes, sir.
So this is one of those kind of multi-stage ones. The street lights, as Mr. Salisbury has indicated, will follow the road, the last lift of the road being done. When the last lift of the road is done, the road is open. We can't keep it closed. So the road will be there. Street lights will follow about a month later. Water line has nothing to do with being able to drive on it, obviously, will follow a little bit later. And then the reason that the entirety of the project will not be accepted for infrastructure until probably next spring is there's the landscaping, and we make sure that the seed takes place. None of that will delay opening the road in a month or so, but we will not be accepting the road until all that landscaping is done next to it. Okay. Just wanted to follow up on that, sir.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for Mr. Gress? All right, moving right along. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Gress. I would ask Chief Wilson to make a report for Police Emergency Management.
I just have 2 items for you all this evening. The police department will be participating in
Your mic on, Lynn?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
The Drug Enforcement Administration's 27th National Drug Take-Back Program. This is our second one this year. We participated in the spring and we'll participate in the fall. It's October 26th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Same locations. We typically do it in the PD lobby and also at the Price Chopper vestibule. It's a good program. We typically, most years, we do about 150 to 200 pounds. Every now and again, we'll get a 300 pound year, which is a good year. It keeps that off the streets, out of landfills and out of the trash. We also will be coming up to the Raymore Police Department's No Shaving for Kids campaign. I don't know where the year went. As you can see, Mr. Fearborn's look on his face. He's not prepared for this to come up, but again, it's a fun time for all the officers. It supports our Shopping with the Kids event in December. All the officers have to pay $25 for the first month, and then the next month they pay $100, and all that goes to Shopping with the Kids. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If anybody is looking for the website, it's just the Raymore Foundation. They can log on to the Raymore Foundation and donate in their favorite officer's name for Shop with the Cop.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for the chief? All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fearborn?
Sir?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes, Mr. Mills.
quick question. Are there, other than that, is there other ways that people can give money towards helping the Shop with the Cop? Is there other?
We prefer everyone to use the foundation website. However,
Okay.
they can bring in a check and we'll get it turned in. I know that there's several folks that volunteer their time on the event day, and we really appreciate all the help with wrapping. It's a long evening, but it's well worth it and fun for the kids and also the officers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Abdel, go ahead.
So on the drug take-back point, is there still a box in the lobby downstairs? And if people can't come to this day for the event, where are other places they can take drugs on a regular basis?
Well, they can also check with their pharmacy as well. A lot of the pharmacy nowadays have those same boxes, but we do have our box in the lobby as well. I know that most police agencies in our area have that same box. Several pharmacies in Raymore also have the box, so.
But the drug take-back day is usually coordinated with the DEA as well.
Yes.
So there's almost an immediate removal.
It is
On that particular
the very
day.
next day, we are loading all those boxes up and taking them to the DEA.
All right. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Burke.
This came, thank you. This came across my mind while you were talking about the drug take-back. I was looking for pills for my cats for their fleas, and I found that I had a huge amount of flea pills for my dog that's passed away. That would probably be a good place to take it as well, probably.
Yes, you can bring that right on up Saturday, the 26th, and we'll put it in there. You don't have to worry about if they're in the label. You know, if there's a label on the bottle, they go straight into the box. Those boxes get sealed up at the end of that time frame, and then they get put in a secured facility until we take them to the DEA.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Circo.
Yes, Mr. Fearborn, you had a great beard. If you could have held on 2 more months, you could have led the way to this November no shave. That's all I got to say.
The look on my face is this year physical as well as literal about the no shave event, sir.
All right, moving right along. Mr. Fearborn, anyone else?
Thank you, Chief. Just want to remind the council, we do have a work session next Monday night, October 21st. Right now, 2 items on the agenda. The annual presentation of the snow plan, which has seen a number of modifications with our new Public Works leadership for this year. And of course, all the way until the final reading on the budget. The budget is always on the work session agenda. That concludes staff reports, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions to Mr. Fearborn? Hearing none, moving right along. I will now move to the consent agenda. We just have the one item this evening. It's the minutes of the September the 23rd council meeting. Do I have a motion to dispose of this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman,
Sir, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented to include item A, the city council meeting minutes for the meeting of September 23rd, 2024.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3912 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3912 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, granting Evergy Missouri West, its successors, and assigns a franchise and authorization to construct, operate, and maintain all appropriate facilities for carrying on a light, heat, and power business, granting the right to use the streets, alleys, and all other public places of the city within the present or future certificated service territory of the company therefore, and prescribing the terms and conditions of such authorization.
Thank you, ma'am. If there's no further questions on this item, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of it.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 3912, the Evergy franchise agreement.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3912. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Okay, please have the second reading of Bill 3912 by title only.
The second reading of Bill
3913, excuse me.
13 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving an agreement for the acquisition of right-of-way and a temporary construction easement needed to complete the construction of Sunset Lane.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 3913, the Sunset Lane Acquisition Settlement Agreement.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3913. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3916 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3916 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authoring the city manager to enter into an agreement with VF Anderson Builders for the Sunset Lane and Hawk Ridge Park project, city project number 24-361-201, in the amount of $2,118,106.14, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. If there's no further questions on this item, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of it.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 3916, award of contract for the Sunset Lane and Hawk Ridge Park project.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3916. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3917 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3917 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Inco USA LLC for the sidewalk replacement project, city project number 24-458-201, in the amount of $200,554.07, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3917, award of contract for the sidewalk replacement project.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3917. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3915 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3915 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction, Inc. for the Memorial Park Bridges project, city project number 24-449-202, in the amount of $230,000, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 3915, award of contract for the replacement of the Memorial Park bridges.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3915. Any further discussion? I know Tom's excited. He doesn't want to trip over that bridge anymore, right? All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3918 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3918 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the fiscal year 2025 budget.
This item does require a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight, Bill 3918 presents the fiscal year 2025 budget for council consideration. First proposed to the council by the city manager on August 19th. Since then, there have been 3 work sessions. Good discussion by the council relative to the budget as presented. Each year, as far as the motion for this is concerned, after staff makes the recommendation in the report, the city council motion includes the original budget as presented, and then the amendments are added separate from the original budget. Both the normal motioner and seconder actually have the motion in front of them tonight, and the rest of the council actually has the amendment spreadsheet that you saw on the screen during the 3 work sessions, so you can be following along relative to that. The budget, the fiscal year 2025 budget, just to give an outline, total expenditures and transfers from the general fund are $13,874,665. The park fund total expenditures proposed $1,991,334. The general obligation debt $2,615,750. The vehicle replacement expenses, $337,707. Restricted revenue expenditures outlined to the council, $519,410. Total enterprise fund expenses and transfers, $11,980,413. Total capital fund expenditures, which include debt service, the actual projects themselves, and certain fees that are associated with the capital funds. Total proposed $10,582,636. Items that the council asks be added as amendments are $1,124,557 to be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the transportation fund to be used on street and curb projects to be determined at a later date. $2,685 be transferred from general fund available fund balance to general fund streets budget for the purchase of a solar weather camera. $3,020 to be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the general fund administration budget for the purchase of a drone. $9,169 be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the general fund streets budget for the purchase of advanced traffic counting equipment, and that $109,446 be transferred from the enterprise fund available fund balance to the enterprise fund water and sewer capital outlay vehicle purchases accounts for the purchase of a backhoe loader. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff at this time? Hearing none, we do have a public hearing open. If anyone from the public would like to address the city council at this time on this 24-25 budget, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so I'll close the public hearing at this time and ask again if there are any questions of the city manager on this particular reading. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman.
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 3918, the fiscal year 24-25 budget in its entirety as presented by the city manager on August 19th with the following 5 amendments. One, that $1,124,557 be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the transportation fund to be used on street and curb projects to be determined. Two, that $2,685 be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the general fund streets budget for the purchase of a solar weather camera. Three, that $3,020 be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the general fund administration budget for the purchase of a drone. Four, that $9,169 be transferred from the general fund available fund balance to the general fund's street budget for the purchase of advanced traffic counting equipment. And Amendment 5, that $109,446 be transferred from the enterprise fund available balance to the enterprise fund water and sewer capital outlay / vehicles accounts for the purchase of a backhoe / loader.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded for the adoption of the first reading of the FY 2025 city budget. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Okay, please have first reading of Bill 3919 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3919 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2024 operating budget.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
I would ask Ms. Williams to make a staff report on this agenda item, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening for your consideration is a budget amendment amending the fiscal year 2024 operating budget. During fiscal year 2024, the following operating transactions occurred, causing projections to exceed budget and require budget amendments. Finance staff has accumulated these items to be addressed as a single budget amendment. The compensation classification study was completed and implemented effective March 1st, 2024. It is necessary to adjust personnel budgets prorated for the 8 months in the operating funds. That includes $644,882 in the general fund, $58,289 in the park fund, and $42,598 in the enterprise fund. The administration department completed and paid for the compensation study in fiscal year 2024 that was budgeted in fiscal year 2023, $24,218 to be amended to the general fund admin department. The street department purchased an anti-ice spray system for $82,875 in the general fund. The finance department also saw an increase in credit card fees due to an increase in usage, as well as an increase in fees charged by our processor of $46,000 in the general fund. The communications department created a position and hired a community engagement coordinator. This position was originally a temporary intern and later became a full-time employee at $41,000 in the general fund. In addition, the Parks Department eliminated a full-time employee position that they had added as a business office events coordinator or business office coordinator, and that full-time position was eliminated. The prosecutor contract was renewed and increased during the middle of fiscal year 2024 of $2,250 to the general fund prosecutor department. The enterprise fund should reimburse the general fund for the increase in credit card fees associated with utility billing. That's a $46,000 expense to the enterprise fund, transferring to the general fund. Available fund balance was transferred from the general fund, capital improvement sales tax fund, water connection fee fund, and sewer connection fee fund to the restricted revenue fund for expenses associating with fighting the threatened landfill. $2,500,000 was from the general fund, $500,000 from the capital improvement sales tax fund, $145,000 from the water connection fee fund, as well as $145,000 from the sewer connection fee fund. Restricted revenues were then used to pay for expenses and settlement associated with the landfill on the northern border of the city in the amount of $3,290,000 paid out of the restricted revenue fund. Restricted funds set aside for the growth management plan, citizen survey, and community art were used for professional services related to the city's comprehensive plan, the annual citizen survey, and the Raymore mural on the east side of the city. That total out of restricted revenue fund was $54,516. There were emergency repairs to curbs in Edgewater, 3rd, and the Creekmore subdivision, paid for from the Transportation Sales Tax Fund of $24,245. The Communications Department requested that we transfer funds out of the general fund to the restricted revenue fund to save for later future lease payments for public art. And finally, the Parks and Recreation Department had additional credit card fees due to increased fees and usage, and that amount was $5,729 from the park fund. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Williams, or Mr. Fearborn, do you have anything to add to her report?
Thank you, sir. The council will note a number of these were items that were approved that had, a good example is the landfill. Those items were approved from the sources that they were in, not knowing what the final tally was going to be. We knew general amounts. And so what you see in here is not only the transfer that was associated, but then we also have to appropriately budget the actual expense that was done. So you see the transfers from the funds that the council had known about in being budgeted, but then you also see from the restricted revenue fund the actual expenditure of those funds. 3 of these, of course, we've had a number of conversations with the council on them. They are relative to credit card fees, continues to be a source that we are looking at and trying to come to a solution on as those fees continue to increase and the usage of the credit cards continues to be used. We have some ideas on it. Several of them will end up being somewhat neutral if we implement them. So we're actually looking both with the credit card fee companies as well as some internal processes that we could change that are associated with that. And again, most of the others of these are simply trying to make sure that we're extremely transparent in emergency purchases that we had to do where we didn't know what the project was approved. We didn't know what the final tally was going to be, so we want to make sure that we account for those and are transparent appropriately. That concludes staff report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mills, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Williams. You had mentioned in the section where we talked about adding the temporary intern became a full-time position in the 41,000 general fund. You had mentioned something about there was a position eliminated in the Parks Department, but I don't see that listed. So I'm just asking if from a point of order, do we need to amend this to show that in here? But I don't see that listed on this list.
The elimination of the Parks position was for, basically, we eliminated the Parks position and that position was assimilated into the general fund. So the general fund amount, taking the person from part-time to full-time, is still there. The Parks Department still received the $100,000 transfer. So that is an expense neutral item there that doesn't need to be reported. There was no increase or decrease in the Parks fund.
Okay.
When the
Because they
budget
show the 41,000 for the general fund for the new full-time equivalent, but Ms. Williams mentioned something about eliminating a park fund employee, but I mean, it just wasn't listed here, and I didn't know if that was something that we needed.
It's on page 2 of the ordinance. It's almost.
I was looking at the
summary.
It's one of the
summary thing.
The third last whereas of
Okay.
a lot of whereases.
When the council adopts the budget in the ordinance, the council adopts not only the money, but they adopt every single word that is in the budget. And the 2 material items that are associated with the budget are personnel and the number of personnel that we have and obviously the budget amounts, the expense amounts. And so when we're reporting, again, from a transparency standpoint, we eliminated a full-time position in parks and at the exact same time created a full-time position from a half-time position in the general fund to do the duties that were originally assigned to Parks. So from a material standpoint, a personnel change needs to be reported to the council.
Okay, I'm just trying to see in the bill itself, I just see about the adding the employee, not deleting it, so it's all, I mean,
It's a third whereas from now therefore. It's toward the end of the whereases. It says, whereas during the 23-24, the Parks and Recreation Department eliminated the Business Development Coordinator position, 1 FTE, and then whereas Parks Department had additional credit card fees.
okay, I see it now, okay.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3919, the budget amendment for the fiscal year 2024 operating adjustments.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdelgawad. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3919. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3924 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3924 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from R1P Single Family Residential Plan District to R2 Single and Two Family Residential District, a 17.33 acre tract of land located in the northwest quarter of Section 17, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. This also requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time, and I'll ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and the council, this is the first of two applications running back to back. I'll provide a staff report on the request, and then the applicant is here this evening to do a brief presentation with the city council. So, give me 1 second here. The basis for the first request here is an application filed by Sean Siebert requesting to reclassify the zoning of approximately 7.33 acres of land from its current R1P Single Family Residential Plan District to an R2 Single and Two Family Residential Plan District. The intent of that is to allow them to proceed forward with the filing of a preliminary plat, which is the next application here. The subject property was originally included as part of the Timber Trails preliminary plat, which was originally approved by the city in 2004, still is undeveloped to this day. As I mentioned, approval of this application would allow the applicant to proceed forward with the platting of the property as they intend to propose to the city council. A couple items I'll highlight in the staff report, kind of the surroundings of this area in terms of the zoning and the use. To the north of the subject property is currently zoned R3B. It's apartment community residential. That would be the depot at Raymore Apartment Community. To the south is generally open space and R1P Single Family Residential Plan District. That's the open space tract there in the Timber Trails subdivision, as well as the third phase of Timber Trails. To the east is R1 Single Family District. That's the Fox Haven subdivision to the east. And to the west would be R3AP Multifamily Residential Plan District, as well as PUD. That encompasses the Benton House at Raymore, the Alera Project PUD, as well as the Timber Trails Mixed Use PUD. Some history on the property here. Tonight's meeting does require a public hearing, so it was advertised in the September 25th edition of the North Cass Herald. As I mentioned, the subject property was initially zoned from its previous agricultural and industrial zoning designations in 2004. That's how it obtained the R1P zoning designation that it has today. Most recently around this subject property on April 25th of 22, the City Council approved the PUD and preliminary plan for the Alera project, which is a 170-lot single-family development. That development actually has not been, there's no applications that have been filed for that project, so it is actually set to expire at the end of this month. On September 26th of 22, the City Council approved the most recent phase of the Timber Trails subdivision, which would be the third plat. There's housing construction actively going on in that subdivision right now. On July 24th of 2024, the City Council voted to approve the Timber Trails Mixed Use Project, PUD, and preliminary plan, which is generally to the west of this subject property. And then, as I mentioned, the applicant has also filed concurrently with this request a preliminary plat application pursuant to this zoning request. Within your staff report, on page 3 of that staff report is kind of the existing development standards for the existing zoning, R1P, as well as the proposed zoning under R2. A good neighbor meeting was held here in the city council chambers on August 14th. Present was staff and the applicant. No public attended that meeting, but staff did stick around for about 15 minutes or so to ensure that any public members attended that we were here. Notices were mailed out in addition to that to 27 adjoining property owners. We did receive about 3 calls about the project once the signs went up. The bulk of those just had to do with whether or not the city staff had spoken to the school district on the project and also clarifying just what the actual application was. You'll see within the staff report, staff did share this request with the school district. They did not voice any concerns or issues with the capacity. This particular property would be in the attendance boundary of Eagle Glen Elementary, which is just to the east of the subject property. Overall, staff did include in the staff report kind of a statement of the alignment with the comprehensive plan relative to the land use request this evening. Also included in your staff report would be the staff proposed findings of fact. Those were presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 17th. At that meeting, the commission did vote 8-0 to accept those findings of fact and forward this case to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. That would conclude my portion of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, as I mentioned, the applicant is here this evening with a brief presentation for their project as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Gress at this time? Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gress, I just noticed this just now, to be honest. How many duplexes are on Darrowby?
I don't have that number off the.
Any until just now.
I don't have that number off the top of my head. South of Johnston in that subdivision, though, I would hazard a guess of about 8 to 10. I can get that number for you, though.
Is that about right?
There's 13 total, 26 residences and 13, and they're all on the west side of Darrowby, south of Johnson Drive.
That really makes a big difference to my vote, to be honest. I did not think there were any duplexes right there, and that's probably good that I just saw that.
Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Siebert, would you care to, or do you have someone? Okay.
And while they're walking up here, I will take control of the council screen. As I mentioned, there is a presentation that the applicant has prepared for this evening.
Well, good evening, Matt Slish, Engineering Solutions, 50 Southeast 30th Street, Lee Summit, Missouri, and Mr. Siebert's with me as well, so we can hopefully answer any questions you may have. As we worked with staff on this site, we tried to find a fit that we thought made sense.
Is your microphone on, Matt?
It is.
Okay.
Loud enough
Step
for
up
you?
to it a little bit.
I can
a
do
little
it.
tall for it.
There it is.
There you go. Thank you,
But we tried to find something that we thought would make sense on kind of that northerly side of this development area. As we come from 58, the commercial area, come down to the apartments, kind of come into some transitional duplex 2-unit housing. Sean then went and worked hard to find 2 different unit types so we can have a mixture of units within the facility to provide a good opportunity of providing another housing type up in that corridor and within the city. So as you see, what we've tried to do is identify the 2 house types as kind of by color, so you can kind of identify the mixture of uses. If you go ahead to the next one, David. Yeah, keep going. We can kind of go. So you'll see the mixture of those uses to where building type 1 would be that orange. We'll call that the bigger type unit. That has the 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, generally 2,000, 2,100 square foot per unit. I'll show you some rendering shortly about those sides of it. And then the building type 2, the blue type, is our 2-bedroom, 2-unit, generally about 1,600 square foot per unit. Again, trying to provide something in the area, in the community, that provides a mixture of uses and opportunities, as well as just different product that is out there. So as Mr. Siebert, you well know, developed some stuff out here on this down the east side of town. This product type, as we go to the next one, yeah, you can say we'll stop. The elevations are the landscaping that we'll do on that side of it. Go ahead and go back one. We're providing around the perimeter to kind of enhance the overall development, provide some screening to the east of our adjacent neighbors that are single family, provide some additional screening and just landscaping throughout the entire project. Go ahead. And as we did have the neighborhood meeting that no one did attend, we go ahead to the next one. So this would be kind of the idea of what the architectural style of development is to try to bring some type of a higher scale, upscale type of development. This would be the 2-bedroom, 2-unit style. Go to the next one. And then you can see the 3-bedroom, 2-unit. It's again, it's a mixture of materials and styles that are unlike the current product he has. It's unlike what we believe is in the area currently, and we will provide, we believe, a good use for the community. So with that, Mr. Siebert, myself are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody have any questions at this time? Who's down here? No, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this development, will it be one that someone can purchase, or are these rental units?
Everything inside the community right now is for rent. So it'll be maintained by Mr. Siebert just as he does at Oak Ridge.
Ms. Abdel, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I'm wondering, with the properties you have already built, how many of them are full? How many are empty? Like, what are you seeing as the demand for this type of property?
Sean Siebert, 1813 Southwest Fountain Drive, Lee Summit, Missouri. To answer your question, this product type is main floor living. It's our most in-demand product because there's no steps. So we have a fourplex product where all the bedrooms are upstairs. This product type, everything's on one level living. We have over, I want to say 50, 60 people waiting list for this product type. And we have people that have signed 10-year leases on this product type. And so the demand for this product type is very high, I guess, to answer your question.
Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Said that you were going to have multiple, 2 different styles, so there would be breaking up the series of identical houses. But can you see those houses from the road to the east? Can you see any of the different style as you look down the entirety of the street?
Just to reiterate, what we're going to have is 2 different floor plans. They're all going to go together. It's not 2 different styles, 2 different floor plans. The community itself is going to go together, and the style that he's referring to is unlike Oak Ridge product and other product we built before that's more of a contemporary style. This is a more traditional style. But to answer your question, no, you unless you turn down, I think it's Dean, you really can't see this from Johnson Drive.
What I'm asking you is, as you look down the street, which is not named Street 1, as you're on Johnston and you look to the north, are there any houses visible on that street that look different than the others? I can't tell from the takeover of my computer.
Go back 2 slides, David.
So I think, are you asking?
So the blue ones are one style, and they all look the same, right?
So in addition to the floor plan, like Sean's speaking of, then there'll be palette colors, materials that'll be a mixture along the street. So as you drive down the street, it won't feel like a Arizona retirement community where it's the same one over and over. He'll have a mixture of palette types that are available, so that way as you drive down, the stone type, the material, the color will change as the as the project moves down the road. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it won't look consistent, but it'll be a similar style architecturally, but the colors, materials will change.
Mr. Zer, did you have some input?
Yeah, I just want to make sure and remind the council, you have findings of fact that are important for your considerations on a rezoning application. Want to make sure and pull conversation and questions back to those findings of fact and the pertinence of them. You'll find that if you're inquiring on it on page 241 of your packet for follow-up on, hey, these are areas that are concerned with regard to rezoning applications. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions of the developer or staff? Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I look at this, we're talking higher, the larger ones are in blue, the smaller ones are in red. Or the other way around.
Flip that, yep.
Smaller ones are in red. Now, the ones that are going to be backing up to the houses on Derby, now are you going to put a kind of a berm, some there, a separation, other than just trees?
It will include...
Mr. Mayor, point of order. We just got a note from our council that this is a zoning application. This is not preliminary plat. That's not appropriate under the findings of facts. It's not an appropriate question.
So if we approve the zoning, then we move forward for the
For the
part
plat.
two.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Without any, oh, wow, really?
All right. Any other questions? Anything else from staff at this time?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this. Oh, wait a minute. We have a public hearing
Yep.
is open. Excuse me. Public hearing is open. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time on this topic, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I'll entertain that motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3924, Timber Ridge rezoning R1P to R2.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3924. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? 4. Those against? It's a 4-4 tie. Oh, that's interesting. So, having worked with Mr. Siebert from the planning and zoning perspective, I do feel like they have a great track record. And given the opportunity to vote on this particular item, I'm going to move on an aye basis. And so the motion will pass 5 yes, 4 no on this particular item. So we'll now move on to Resolution 24-28. Could I please have the reading of that?
The reading of Resolution 24-28, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the preliminary plat for the Timber Ridge subdivision, a 17.33-acre tract of land located in the northwest quarter of Section 17, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This also requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time. And is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to begin the staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned, this would be the second of the 2 applications that the applicant has filed this evening. With the preliminary approval of the zoning, it does allow them to proceed forward with the preliminary plat. This has a lot more of the information and some of the questions that we were just talking about. In general, the proposed development includes 35 lots, 2-family lots on the 17.33 acres. In total, it would add 70 new housing units within this undeveloped piece of property. As I mentioned, this was originally part of the Timber Trails preliminary plat, zoned for single family, and has remained undeveloped since its approval by the city. Because this is a proposed development, it does require the MOU, which the council has in their packet. That's been prepared for the specific development that's in front of you this evening and does limit the future development of the property to essentially what you see before you this evening in terms of the number of units, the architectural and style that the applicant just presented, as well as just the development regulations in the city as a whole. Overall, as I mentioned, it is a 35-lot single-family or 2-family subdivision totaling the 70 units, over 35 lots in the 17 acres. It's a density of approximately 4.12 acres, or I'm sorry, dwelling units per acre for the proposed subdivision. Because tonight does require a public hearing, this application was also advertised in the September 25th edition of the North Cass Herald. The history of the application remains very similar to the previous application, but I wanted to highlight a couple additional things. As I mentioned, the property was initially zoned and had the approval for the preliminary plat in 2004. The Timber Trails preliminary plat covered the entirety of that subdivision, so what is now the Alara project, what is now the Timber Trails mixed-use project, and the single-family subdivision that is Timber Trails to the south. What I wanted to point out is that this specific property was just one phase of the Timber Trails subdivision overall. When it was approved in 2004, this specific piece of property, though, included 47 single-family units that were never built. But I wanted to mention that just to kind of compare what it is the applicant's requesting to do with their preliminary plat, which is 70 units. So what they're really asking to add by that request is an additional 23 units that weren't initially included as part of this specific piece of property. Again, in your packet is the proposed bulk and dimensional standards for what all of these lots on the plan have to comply with. in terms of the proposal before you this evening. As I mentioned, we did share this request with the school district as well as the neighboring property owners. I kind of summarized the phone calls that we had gotten from the neighbors as well as the conversation with the school district. This application was also presented at the Good Neighbor meeting in terms of the zoning of the property and then what specifically the applicant was hoping to do. Again, no residents were at that, and so in this packet as well is the summary of a couple of the phone calls that staff took. The preliminary plat and the layout of the proposed subdivision was shared with the fire district for their review. No questions were raised during their review of the project. They obviously, if this project does move forward, will have a chance to review the more detailed plans at the final plat stage. The applicant is required, as the council may remember, as part of the GeoBond project that we had approved, we constructed Johnston Drive, simply just the street. So by developing the subject property, the applicant is also required to construct the sidewalk that will connect Dean Avenue and Darrowby along the north side of Johnston, as well as the streetlights that did not get installed as part of that project originally, since it was just the street improvement in that area. A couple questions raised about the adjacency to the Foxhaven subdivision. This is a requirement that gets triggered when you start looking at the kind of a transition from single and two family to single family. Within our code, it's the subdivision adjacency standards. Essentially what it does is provides a buffer between new development and existing development. So within your packet, the UDC provides what I will call a menu of options that the developer can choose from and that staff can suggest as part of an application. The applicant has elected essentially a combination of the options that are allowed within the code. The first one being yard matching and landscaping without berming. Yard matching just means that the dimensions of the lots that abut the single-family subdivision are the same or similar. They are also adding landscaping, as you saw on the applicant's presentation, and they are also adding landscaping without the berm. So the combination of options there, staff to determine that it does meet the intent of that requirement to provide the buffer between two-family and existing single-family development. From a public works standpoint, the preliminary plat, the city is able to serve this from both a transportation and a utility standpoint. And then again, I highlighted what some of those improvements will be in terms of the streetlight construction and the sidewalk construction for that section of Johnston. The Parks Board did meet on September 10th of this year and reviewed the project to determine what the parkland dedication requirement would be. The board did determine that the cash in lieu of land was the ideal situation for this type of development. So that equated to approximately $92,500. As that is paid throughout the final plat phase, it is paid per dwelling unit. So that equates to about $1,321 per unit or $2,642 per building as those get developed. Again, within your packet is the MOU for the subdivision that includes all the details about what the applicant is proposing to do. At the September 17th, 2024 meeting, staff did present the proposed findings of fact to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They did vote 7-1 to accept the staff proposed findings of fact and recommend this project to the City Council with a recommendation of approval, subject to the 3 conditions that were outlined in your staff report. I'm happy to explain any of those if there are any questions, but that will conclude my staff report, and again, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Any questions of Mr. Gress at this time? Mr. Mills?
And I don't know whether you necessarily can answer this. My understanding is, again, that these are all going to be leased and owned by the developer. And when I read the memorandum of understanding, it says that, if these go, are assigned or a successor or anything like that, it doesn't change this memorandum of understanding. However, we don't have, if the developer decided he wanted to sell this to some other entity, we don't have anything there's nothing we can say or do about that other than legally try to make them adhere to the MOU. Is that correct?
They would be subject, so any alteration in ownership, you would have to have it be subject to the MOU. It would be to their successors and assigns for any future purchaser.
Correct, but we don't have any saying on who could purchase it, like if they're
That would be
out of the
accurate.
country or if they're some corporation. We don't have any say over that. All we have is we can enforce the MOU,
As
correct?
allowed by law, they would be able to sell to whoever entity or
that's-
whatever individual were capable of purchasing real property in the United States of America.
Okay, that's the way I understand it. Thank you.
Mr. Siebert, could you step forward, sir? How long have you owned Oak Ridge Farms?
Since, well, the ground, since 2012, and started building in 2016.
You still own all of the units there?
All of them, yes.
And you've also had a history of duplexes along Park
Yep.
over in Town Center. How long have you owned those?
Those were sold before Oak Ridge, but they were owned for 33 years. I grew up right there on Park. Actually, you can see one of the units from here.
Okay. And the Conway over here is also,
Owned by me and leased by me, and I hold it.
okay.
No plans to sell any property.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Sonia?
Just a quick question to prove a point, if we can answer it. Chief, of the rental properties in town, are the ones owned by Mr. Siebert ones that tend to cause trouble among neighbors? Do you have lots of calls there compared to others?
I don't have any more calls for service there as anywhere else in the city of Raymore.
Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Gress, y'all through? Sean, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this particular project at this time? I would like to kind of clarify some things. So this is a no incentives. They're not asking for any incentives on this particular piece of land as some of the others in that area have. They're installing $250,000 worth of streetlights in that area out of their pocket. Their original proposal was a different style, and because we wanted something different and more luxurious in appearance, they worked with us on those elevations. And I think the product that was presented to us here tonight is pretty nice. And I wouldn't mind it being in my neighborhood, to be honest with you. There is a long-term commitment here. There is the park department stands to make some funds in lieu of for rather than a park space, even though there is going to be a green space there. And if you've ever been out near 135th and Kenneth Road, they're building what they call twin luxury homes, and that's kind of what Mr. Siebert is proposing here this evening. So I'm hoping that you guys can see beyond that and see that what the quality product is going to be there, along with the trusted developer that we have a relationship with. And with that, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say, based on what I voted on the first one, in that particular area, I think because I represent the residents of Ward 1 and also the citizens of Raymore, we have, before this unit, nearly 400 multifamily units within a one-block area.
Sir, this is not a multifamily.
Well,
It's not multifamily. You can't label it with that.
It's not single family, I'll put it that way then. It's not a single family.
Well, it is.
one
There'd be
resident,
single families in each of those homes.
But they're attached. R2.
Okay, it's not multifamily, though. I think
Well-
that's wrong to impose that.
Okay, well, either way, between that, I think the overwhelming majority of the people I talk to would rather have an R1 product that is owned than one that would be leased.
Then why didn't they come up and voice their
Well,
opinion?
it was only mailed to 27 residents, and I think that's the people I've talked to. It's not the immediate people around there. I know that the people in Darrowby have come up here for other reasons, but I look at it more even south of the development to the people that I talk to even more often. It's Ward 1, the product looks nice. I could support it if it was one that was going to be sold. And there is duplexes in Raymore that are sold. They're not rented. And those are the ones I think that the community could get more behind. I think Mr. Siebert has a good product here. It's just, it's not what necessarily the residents of that ward want. And from that standpoint, I think an ownership stake in it would be much more acceptable, and that's why where I'm coming from, I just look at Ward 1 is being developed, in the wrong direction. And to me, I think this was originally, per the growth management plan, appropriate for low-density single-family or residential development. The original plan had this as an R1. And I think we're kind of getting away from that because maybe society is dictating that we build more and more apartments because of desire, but in the long run, I can't consider this affordable housing because it probably comes with a premium. I mean, the size, a new product, it's not necessarily going to be something that a new family can move into that just got done with college or something like that. So I just, from that standpoint, just to explain where I'm coming from, I do think we have to look at the general area. And the duplexes down on Darrowby, it's one of those that those aren't owned properties, so there is a difference there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say, on this particular case, since I was in opposition to the previous rezoning, I am going to abstain from this vote as I did not give it due diligence, as I was not going to approve the zoning. So I thought, reading the entirety of this particular package, as I was not going to vote for the zoning, I didn't put as much time into it. So I'm not going to vote on this particular case, but my appetite for other products other than single family unattached is, I was there when we did the Conway. I was really close to voting no on it, not because of the project, just because I kind of feel like we need to. I don't have a good wrap around my head of how many active building sites are going on right now all over the city, and that's going to drastically change the percentage of 70 to 30 that we want to stay at. So that's where I'm coming from. But on the second read, I will give it due diligence and
Does anybody have
take a look
any
at it.
questions? Mr. Zerr?
Again, I'm simply going to refer you back on this particular case, page 259. There are 4 findings of fact for your considerations under a preliminary plat. Some of the discussion should focus back again on what the terms of the preliminary plat are presenting to you.
Thank you, sir.
For evaluation.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Mr. Fearborn?
Just a point, just want to remind Councilmember Burke, this will not have a second reading, it's a resolution.
Sonia, did you have something? Do you have a question?
I was just going to suggest that we really need a motion on the floor before we begin our discussion.
Okay, good point.
Public up yet.
Yep. Yeah, there is a public hearing open at this time on this particular item. If anyone from the public would like to come forward and talk to the council on this subject, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so I'll close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Ullman?
Sir, I move that we approve Resolution 24-28, the Timber Ridge preliminary plat.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of, excuse me, it's not the first reading, it's Resolution 24-28. Any further discussion? That was an opportunity. Mr. Ullman?
Yeah, a couple of the council members have expressed some discourse with renting versus owning, and I would be curious if they would care to comment on what is so bad about renting. And I would remind them that during the housing crash of 2007 and 28 and on, many of the single-family homes you see in town are owned by corporations and being rented by individuals. We are unable to track the statistics on that, but a number of those single-family homes that you see out there are owned by corporations, and the people living in them are renting. The chief himself has said we've had no additional crime problems as a result of any of those things. So I'm trying to wrap my head around why renting is evil and why owning is the ultimate thing that we have to strive for.
Mr. Duggan.
I was going to make a similar comment, encouraging some fellow council members who seem to have an opinion about things, once again, to look at facts pay attention to the police reports that we see on a weekly basis coming from our police department. With those, you can see areas where there is more crime, where the police are called more often. And then I would also encourage, if you're going to make assumptions about properties with individual owners based on properties that are owned by a company or multiple properties like this one, really look into what you might think falls under that category compared to ones that truly do. I can think of many properties in town who are rentals owned by individual owners who do not have maintenance, a quality appearance like they had once, as some other properties in town that are owned by a business. So just hesitating, council members, to follow with that opinion. I think it's clearly an opinion and not based on fact.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Baker, did you have something? I saw your hand go up a second ago. Oh, Mr. Burke?
Thank you. My comment was about single-family development or homes, 1P, I think it is. And isn't that what it was to begin with? Yes. All right, so I was happy with that. What is wrong with that? It's, if you go out several miles in 3 directions
We
from
had
that,
no one interested in the property, Mr. Burke.
well,
It's been sitting there for 20 years.
The opinions of my constituents are that they are wanting us to slow down. That's the
I don't
opinion
disagree
that-
with you there. But this is not multifamily. Yeah, the market does show different. Anyone else? Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we know in COVID, like on my block, Sunset South, there's 7 or 8 houses across from me. All the way down there are rentals. And what happened was these conglomerate banks came in during COVID and right before COVID. And people would have their house on sale for $235,000. They'd give them $300,000. They'd go a immaculate price and buy them out. Then they wanted to rent them at high dollar. And then that's what they were doing. Now they're trying to sell these houses to individuals and get out of that market. There's a land grab by the big banks. I have some of them houses that have 2 or 3 different tenants every year. They switch and go. But that's how it got started. And now the big conglomerates don't really want them. They'd like to get out of them. And now some of my houses on my street are finally selling to individuals. So we're getting back to that. So that's what happened on a lot of these homes that are owned by conglomerate banks who are not in our community or state. And a lot of them who own them are out of state, and their and their property managers are out of state. We know that's a real problem. But that's how it all got started and went down. So now with everything easing back, you're going to see more. I'm hoping to see more people in the single-family homes being buying and not rental, and we're going to cut the rentals on those single families down because of that purpose, because everything's behind us now. But that was the mainstay of what happened on those and why so many were bought out at top dollar and above. That's what it was.
Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Siebert, do your tenants pay a monthly fee for services?
A monthly fee for services?
Other than rent?
No, they just pay rent, not unless they have a pet or an animal. We are the HOA and we control the HOA. So our tenants don't pay an HOA fee. I pay the HOA fee. So if rent's $1,500, they pay $1,500 a month.
Okay, so you guys take care of the mowing?
100%.
Okay, do you take care of snow removal as far as driveways and sidewalks?
It depends on the client or the lease applicant. Some lease applicants, we do take care of snow removal if they desire. If I have 100 renters, maybe 10 of them need us to plow their driveway for them, and we do that.
Okay. Painting and dry rot? Painting and dry rot?
Yeah, we handle all that. We do weekly inspections on all of our properties. So if we have a lease, somebody that's leasing a property, they have an app. If it's the middle of the night and they're, smoke detector battery goes off. They get on their app, they hit a button, someone's there in an hour, and they replace the smoke detector battery.
Is that a selling point?
It's just the way we do business.
Okay, all right, that's all I have.
Anyone else?
If not, given that we have been given an indication that it's going to be an abstention, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Could I have the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
No.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
No.
Councilmember Circo?
No.
Councilmember Ingert?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Mills?
No.
Okay, it's a split vote again, 4 yes, 4 no. The chair votes aye. The motion carries 5-4. Could I please have this first reading of Bill 3923 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3923 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving a conditional use permit for automobile sales on the property located at 217 North Madison Street, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. This requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time. I'll entertain a motion, I'll ask for a staff report. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The mayor and council, the next application in front of you this evening is made on behalf of Trent Schweitzer, who owns currently the Summit Integrity Auto, which is located at 217 North Madison. The request this evening is for a conditional use permit to help operate a what staff would consider a light equipment and vehicle sales or rental business, or in this case, vehicle sales, coincident with the operation of their auto repair business at that facility. A little bit of a background, and then I'll get into the staff report. The use on the property right now as auto repair is a permitted use for that particular property. Again, what they're asking to do, and the applicant is here this evening to kind of iterate their request a little bit more, is to simply be able to sell the vehicles that they are operating on and fixing at their location here in town. A couple of things to note about the project. The zoning of the property currently is C2 General Commercial District. The surrounding zoning and uses of the property to the north is going to be C2 General Commercial District, generally undeveloped, and R3A Multiple Family Residential District, which is the Oak Ridge Farms fourth phase, currently wrapping up construction. To the south is C2 General Commercial District and BP Business Park District. To the east is going to be R3A Multifamily Residential District, which would be the Point at Raymore Townhomes. And to the west would be additional C2 General Commercial Business District with a few existing businesses and a couple undeveloped pieces of property on the opposite side of 58 Highway. Tonight's meeting does require a public hearing, so it also was advertised in the September 25th edition of the North Cass Herald. A couple items to note for the history of the property that staff included here. In general, throughout its history or its lifespan, the building has been used for primarily either auto repair, auto sales, or a combination of the two. Staff has information going back to at least 2002 from a business license standpoint, and we included those businesses in the staff report. The first known use of that property from a business standpoint would be S&S Oil Co. That was auto repair, H&H Auto Sales, which was auto sales, Tim's Garage, Perkins Automotive, and then most recently Summit Integrity Automotive, which is owned by the applicant. In your packet was kind of a summary sheet of the history of those businesses in terms of how they were approved by the city, what the conditions were that were attached to those approvals for each of the businesses in the history of that property. Adjacent to the property and around it, though, there's a couple additional businesses that have either been currently existing or approved in the past. Victory Lane Auto exists right across the street. It is also a used car lot. It currently operates as a legal non-conforming use, meaning it was approved under a previous zoning code. Nothing has changed about that property since it was approved. It does also mean that no expansions or improvements or anything can be done to that particular business without going through the process that the applicant tonight is going through. And then additionally would be Truck Auto, which was previously located at 302 West Walnut. It was also in the repair of automobiles at that facility as well. The last one would be B&W Auto Sales. It's currently located at 403 West Walnut. Again, that would be a example where a conditional use permit was granted. It ceased to operate for the specified time frame, so that conditional use permit is no longer valid, but is within about a mile or less of the proposed use this evening. Some of the history and kind of how we got to this point in the request. In the C2 district, it is auto sales is not a permitted use by right. So staff working with the applicant was able to kind of get a process based on the history of it to appear before the Board of Zoning Adjustment to ask for a variance of use. What that did is it allowed the Board of Adjustment to determine that a conditional use permit would be the appropriate method for them to operate their business, and then allowed the applicant and staff to submit and review the conditional use permit. So the Board of Zoning Adjustment on September 11th of 24 did approve that request, which is how we got to the application that we're at this evening. Notices were sent to 29 of the adjoining property owners or interested parties. No objections were received based on that request. I wanted to point out, and we'll explain in one of the conditions from the Planning and Zoning Commission, we did receive a complaint about general trash and debris on the property. The applicant will kind of explain what they've been doing in cooperation with the property owner to clean up the property. So that did come up after we sent those notices out and presented this case to Planning and Zoning Commission. So the condition, which I'll elaborate on here in just a few minutes, staff does believe that has been taken care of. Included in your staff report is kind of a conceptual layout that depicts how the property is intended to be used if they're able to proceed forward with their request. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind the City Council there, in approving a conditional use permit, it does provide the latitude to impose the conditions specific to that request. Staff has proposed a number of conditions in our recommendation this evening, mostly that deal with the long-term operation of the business as is proposed. Staff did submit the proposed findings of fact to the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 17th, and at that meeting, they did vote to make a recommendation of approval to the City Council, subject to the conditions that were initially outlined by staff. And then you'll see that the 9th condition that they added dealt with resolving the issue that had come up with regards to the trash. I did speak with both the applicant and the neighboring property owner and ensured that that has been taken care of. They have been actively cleaning up the property, more or less separate from this request this evening, but in general, that issue has been resolved. So that would conclude my staff report. Happy to answer any questions. And then, as I mentioned, the applicant's here this evening for a brief presentation as well.
Okay. Would the applicant care to address the council at this time? Let me ask first, are there any questions of Mr. Gress? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. My name is Trent Schweitzer. I'm one of the owners. There are three of Summit Integrity Auto, and we are also the three owners of the proposed Peak Auto Group. So as you know, we took over in February of this year. We took over it was Perkins for a number of years. And we have since painted the building, and we have renovated the interior of the building as well. You guys remember what it looked like? You know what it looks like now if you've passed Madison Street at all. We want to improve the parking situation as well as the behind the building, where some of the potentially used cars would be stored, as well as some of the Amazon vans that are being stored there now. We want to improve it with putting gravel back there, as well as paving the entire, basically the U-shape around the property, around the building itself with new asphalt. The pictures aren't showing up, but if you guys have passed it, you've seen it. We've drastically improved the properties, at least the look of the property besides the asphalt itself. The proposal tonight would also help us in ensuring that we can afford to put in brand new asphalt as well as the gravel. The asphalt is already a plan. The gravel is something that we are proposing with the used car lot. So I think that's it.
Any questions of the applicant? Okay. Yes, Mr. Holman.
So you currently do auto repair at this location, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
And is this intended to be a divided business? You obviously want to sell cars. I have a little bit of knowledge in the fact that auto mechanics many times in their business end up with, they do a repair for somebody and they never come back and get the vehicle. So you end up with the vehicle as abandoned property, and to pay the bill, you sell the vehicle. Is that the main intent, or are you actually planning to turn a significant portion of your business on selling the vehicles?
We don't have a significant amount of space in the north side of the building. We are not, just so everybody knows, we are not planning on working on Amazon vans for a long period of time. It's a temporary thing. They needed some help. They've got a lot of vans that are down right now. They do have their own shops that operate, but we did sign a contract with them for 6 months to operate and help alleviate that for them. But long term, we don't see us wanting to store a ton of vehicles on the lot always. And on the north side is the planned spot for these used cars. I would see at a max of 20 to 30 at a time. Our part, that is most of the plan, is what you're talking about. Yes, many times people will approve a $7,000 repair and then
Not pay for it.
and they not pay for it, and then we've got to figure out how to get our money back out of it.
Yes, sir.
So that happens a lot.
Understood. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. As this is a public hearing that's open at this time, anyone from the public would care to address the council on this item, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman,
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 3923, Peak Auto Conditional Use Permit at 217 North Madison.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdelgawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3923. Any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad.
Just a quick comment. I admire the people running the business now for coming to the city and trying to work this out. I know some people who've been there previously maybe had some issues with not going through the proper channels in order to do similar things with their business. So thank you guys for going through the right steps and working with the city and doing it all the right way. I admire that.
Good point. Anyone else? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3922 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3922 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing stop signs within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Yes, I would ask Mr. Salisbury to begin the staff report on this agenda item, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mayor, members of council, approval of Bill 3922 would establish a four-way stop at the intersection of Kettering Lane and Creekmore Drive. As you guys probably know, there's kind of a hill there. It's kind of a right turn, kind of awkward, blind intersection, we'll say. With the addition of the house there on the corner and the driveway and frequently vehicles parked in that driveway, it's pretty hard to see when you're trying to turn left there off Kettering Lane. We looked at a couple different options, but we felt that the four-way stop was the best option. We don't like to put stops on collectors as they're meant to collect and get traffic out of the neighborhood, but given the situation, we felt that was the best option. In addition to the four-way stop, there would be stop ahead signs on Creekmore Drive. So down the hill a ways, you would see a stop ahead, and then at the top of the hill, you would see the stop sign. And that concludes my staff report.
Thank you, sir. Do you have someone else to speak on the topic, sir?
Me, sir.
Okay.
I do not want to say that as you know, stop signs become a very emotional issue for folks. Creekmore Drive, our predecessors approved an incredibly long connector on Creekmore Drive. This stop sign is going in not to slow, because it won't, slow down traffic on Creekmore Drive. Creekmore, as I said, Creekmore Drive is too long. They're going to hit the stop sign, go through it. There's still a long way for the parent who is late getting their child to Creekmore Elementary. That speed is going to increase. The issue here is unique to the intersection, and if you haven't been there, this intersection is very blind, especially as you're going northeast bound on it because of the hill, because of the slight turn. It's a blind intersection. The more important thing to the stop sign, in fact, is going to be the stop sign ahead sign that hopefully will slow people down so that they don't go blowing through, because we do have concerns that it's going to create, for the left turners, it's going to create a little bit of a false sense of security that somebody's going to stop if they don't know that stop sign is coming. So, for lack of a better term, this is the best solution to a very odd situation that we wish didn't exist, but it does. That concludes staff report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, Mr. Salisbury or Mr. Fearborn? Mr. Barber?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I'm not sure who this needs to go to, but there's a process, obviously, for putting a stop sign in place if this passes. And you made a comment, Mr. Fearborn, that this stop sign is going to have a warning there's a stop sign ahead.
Yep.
So is that going to be done on both directions or just the eastern
It'll be
direction?
both directions, sir.
Okay,
This
thank
will
you.
turn this into a four-way stop. Because we're doing it on the one end, we're acknowledging, in effect, that it's a blind intersection, and it's a blind intersection is a blind intersection no matter which direction you're going. So from a liability standpoint, we do want to make sure it's on both sides.
Mr. Fearborn, the picture in our packet also shows the golf cart crossover. Have we talked to Cooper Development at all, or Creekmore HOA, with regard to a warning at that particular spot? Because that's a little bit dangerous as well. And I was just curious, we'd get a warning for that, people hopefully be slowing down, and then they get the warning for the stop sign. It might, for that particular direction of traffic, it's necessary. I didn't know if we'd had an opportunity to work with them.
We've actually
for golf
talked with, because it's a private
Right.
path that
It
is
is.
there. We can't put one up
Right.
for a private path. We've been working with Mr. Scott to try to get them to put one up there for some time.
Okay.
We're hoping that maybe we can reach the compromise. We did one, you did one, you do one. In
Yeah,
this
there you
particular
go.
case, don't particularly care about the golfers, but whatever.
Hey, watch out there. Mr. Ullman.
Just a comment, sir. Councilman Barber and I are aware of this. This was at least in part born out of a complaint by a citizen who lives right in that area, in that intersection, drives it frequently, brought it to our attention via email, had a meeting with Mr. Salisbury and Chief, Mr. Fearborn was there as well, bringing up his concern. He didn't ask for a stop sign. He was asking for solutions. And staff kind of mulled this over and went out, took a visit, and came to the solution that they're presenting for us tonight. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious on these particular stop signs, are they going to be illuminated like some we have with the solar, so they flash at night?
They will not be, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Any questions of staff? If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3922, establishing a stop sign.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdel-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3922. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3920 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3920 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $5,515,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2024, of the City of Raymore, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions by the city.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Ms. Williams to start the staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening for your consideration is Bill 3920 that includes the parameters for a general obligation bond issue. On August 4th, 2020, Raymore voters approved the issuance of a no-tax increase debt to fund $17,575,000 in street improvements and $5,930,000 in park improvements. This ordinance is the final drawdown and includes a total principal amount of $5,515,000 for transportation projects, including Carswell Road, streetlights, and the I-49 flyover bridge. This issue will be bank qualified. Bank qualification is available to all issuers who intend to issue $10 million or less of tax-exempt securities in one calendar year. The 2024 general obligation bonds are expected to be sold via an electronic competitive sale method on November 12th, and Piper Sandler and Company will be serving as the city's financial advisor, and Gilmore and Bell as the city's bond counsel. Representatives from both of those firms are here this evening if you have any questions for them. That includes staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Fearborn, do you have anything to add?
I would inform the council that we did have the rating call for this particular drawdown, as council is aware. Felt that it went very well. There were some, as you know, we have changed from Moody's to Standard & Poor's. Starting to get familiar with that particular interview team. Had some different criteria that they have added relative to county gross domestic product. And I would tell the council it was kind of interesting. I had a departure discussion on how low, you'll remember, and it's part of this budget tonight, so it's kind of relevant. We had the discussion on what has happened with personal property. With the new formula that's being used, the fact that they didn't assess personal property for a number of years because of COVID, all of those things came back to get us this year, and personal property actually went down. They noted that. I'm turning the multiple pages of questions that we get in advance, and it was like bold in my eyes standing out in the middle of a page that they wanted to know what had happened because assessed valuation only went up so much. So we had a really good discussion on that. They do a number of issues in Missouri and are kind of noting it as a firm. But when we talk about things like that, we often think about it just in terms of how's it going to impact our revenues? How's it going to impact just kind of what's in front of us here in this room? We don't think about those secondary things that our credit agencies are actually looking at things like that. And so I was glad that they were open to a really good discussion so we could explain exactly what was happening with that, and that it would more than likely be a one-time adjustment, and then we would move on from here. That concludes staff report, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions of Mr. Fearborn or our advisory staff? Hearing none, then I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman,
I move that we approve Bill 3920, General Obligation Series 2024 bond issue.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdul-Gawad. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3920. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. Well, that concludes the formal part of our agenda this evening. We'll now move on to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward. We'll close the public comment section and move on to mayor-council communication. Mr. Baker, I'll start with you this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got three things here. First of all, last Friday night we had our last outdoor concert at the Raymore Amphitheater. Councilmember Burke was there. Good to see him there. We also had the Arts Commission at-large member, Gary Graves, was there. Talked to him for a while, which is good. The bands were excellent. I would say anyone driving through that neighborhood did not know that we had a concert going on might think that REO Speedwagon was actually playing at the amphitheater at night. It sounded really good. I will say that hopefully with what we voted on tonight with the Hawk Ridge Park, we definitely need a second parking lot. When I left there last night, the neighborhoods are just packed with cars. It would certainly alleviate part of that, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the Hawk Ridge Park experience once we get that in. So I'm looking forward to groundbreaking and hopefully all that in the very near future. Secondly, in the budget for the drone, I know we didn't talk in the detail, and if anyone knows me, I'm the drone guy here in Raymore, it seems like, but this drone I think is very important to the city as far as communications, development, our parks and arts department utilizing it, and public works. We know the police department has a drone, and rightfully so should be dedicated to police activity only, but this drone is what's going to sell our city. And I think having the right people behind it and utilizing it, it's going to be an invaluable tool for Mr. Gress and Mrs. Harmer and everyone to be able to sell this city from another angle, another perspective. Not a lot of cities use drones in the metro. I know my hometown, the city of Mission, does, and it's much smaller than us. So I think it's one of those things that when we start using it, that we're going to see headway with that. And then lastly, we do have a new restaurant that opened, I think, 6 days ago, Nana Trattoria. Actually, my wife and I went there Saturday night. met with the owners, just happened to come by and asked us how we were doing, but a very good redesign of the former Minsky's location, so want to welcome them to Raymore. Lastly, and I kind of left off, a big thank you to Mrs. Harm. I don't think a lot of people realize that when she does these outdoor concert events, has to get there early, has to get with the bands, park them in the right place, all that stuff. And then afterwards, control the lights, make sure everything's shut down and all that, and really dedicates her entire evening so that the citizens of Raymore can have an enjoyable experience in the city. So thank you, Mrs. Harmer, for another successful season, and hopefully next year we get even bigger bands out there. So thank you.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I don't have much. I was out of town this weekend, Jeff City with Brian Mills. We were doing a first quarter meetings. So I wasn't here to enjoy it. I really look forward to that band, but we were out of town. But yeah, I'm very happy about the Sunset North. I'm glad we're finally getting that done. I know I worked on when I was here last on the council. It's been a long time coming. It's going to be a very good asset going north for us, 163rd. And I'm very happy, and as soon as we get that going, the parks to be able to get that other entry going on the top side there. I think that's going to help us utilize that even more, and I really look forward to that. So anything we can do to get that flyover bridge in, I'm happy with.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of comments. It's good to see that the Parkview is getting some developers or some builders in there and starting to turn some dirt. Looks like they've got the infrastructure almost complete there. So I've been watching, put my eyes on that. I know that's going to be a really nice product they're going to be putting over there. It's nice to see people investing in our city, continue investing. The development that we approved tonight, you know, people see the value in Raymore. We got Mr. Schweitzer and his business expanding. So those are good things. I mean, we're open for business. I think we're doing the right thing. I do want to comment a little bit on some comments were made, and I kept my mouth shut, about rentals. And rentals have had a bad name. If you look at some of the developments that the city of Raymore did 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they are not the developments we do today, nor do we even allow that. I also tell you, as a person that is going into my twilight years, that writing one check a month is intriguing, instead of 10 or 12 that you have to by home ownership. So it's different today than it was 30 years ago. The product that we approved tonight, you know, that I would almost bet you that you're going to see people 55 and older living in that because of the single story. It's hard to find anything in Raymore, Lee Summit, Overland Park that's single story. That's why Morning View is so popular. There's waiting lists over there. People like that. So I'm excited for that. And I can tell you that's something that I could see myself someday. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdelgad.
Thank you, sir. I wasn't going to say much, but just to piggyback a little bit on Mr. Barber's comments, we looked at some market statistics not too long ago that talked to us about rentals and about how our young professionals don't want to purchase property. They don't want the maintenance of owning a house. So besides those of us in our twilight years, I can tell you my husband and I have been looking at some rentals in the last few years. So once the kids move out, we just don't have a need for a big house anymore and don't want to commit necessarily to staying in the same place for a while. So I think between people our age and even in those new professionals that are coming to work at Honeywell and, you know, some of the places that we have for the young business people, rentals are attractive to people more and more than in previous years. So again, I encourage my fellow council members to look at some facts and some statistics before they vote based on opinions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Ingert.
I'll go along with my last two colleagues and let them know that the services or the amenities, for lack of a better word, really come in handy when you not only reach twilight, but you get a little bit further into it as well. It's a wanted item when someone comes to look at a house that offers those, because they don't have to do it anymore. I don't have to cut my grass. I don't have to shovel my snow. What do you mean you guys will paint my house? You'll paint? Yeah, we'll do the dry rot as well. There's a reason why that Morning View, and you address that, you can't keep a house on the market longer than a day, is because of those amenities. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for a house anymore. They don't want the maintenance. They want to be able to pick up and go whenever they feel like it, go wherever they want to, and not worry about, I gotta mow the grass when I get home. Oh, there's that spot on the paint that I have to get taken care of. Now I gotta shovel the driveway too as we go through. They're not looking for those kinds of things anymore. So I'll just throw that out there from experience. Those are the things they're looking at. And then finally, Chief, would you please pat yourself on the back, and your officers too. Having had the opportunity throughout my career to sit in on a few city council meetings and listen to the police reports, they talk about, here's a number of stolen cars we've had. Here's an update on the armed robbery that we had at the CVS place. Here's the cars that have been broken into along this way. And what do you have to tell us? We've got Drug Take Back Day, and we've got Shop with a Cop. What great publicity is that, not only for the city, but for the police department as well. So I would ask that you please pat yourself on the back. You're the leader. But let your other officers know the same thing, that they're doing the right things.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman?
I don't have anything additional tonight, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to echo the words about the concert. I couldn't get the song out of my brain on Saturday. They just kept playing, so I'm like, I have one of these on an album. So I pulled it out, put it on the turntable, and played Riding the Storm out really loud. No one was home. And then it was out of my brain, so it was good. But the rest of the album was terrible, incidentally. But the band maybe made 3 notes of mistakes in the entire, 6, 7 songs. They were really very professionally, they were good. So anyway, thank you. I wanted to thank the city. I got a chance to go to the American Planning Association Quad State Conference in Fayetteville, Arkansas last week from Sunday to Wednesday. And had I been a city planner, I would have earned 9.5 continuing education credits, but I didn't. But I learned a lot of stuff. There were 2 of note. There's a project with Southwest Boulevard that I got to listen to the planners and the engineers on their project and what they're going to do with it. And I'm a little concerned for La Bodega, but it's going to be a great project. And then the other one was flooding in Westport, and they're going to do something there that's just amazing. That'll help a lot of people in Westport. So those kind of ideas, I sat and talked to a Oklahoma City planner for about an hour and a half, and I said, well, our town is this size, and she said, well, that's like the size of a neighborhood in Oklahoma City, so let me kind of give you some things that we're doing. So it was really, really good, and I learned a lot of things. And then the last part I wanted to mention, in 2014, I was on planning and zoning, and there was a development project coming up that I really didn't personally, my opinion was not favorable, but I, at the last second, had to run that meeting. And planning and zoning has to make rulings on the facts, or we could be sued. So of course, when I'm running that meeting and no one would even make a motion, I had to make the motion, and hoping I'd get a second. So, whereas on city council, the opinion of the constituents run this. What they want us to do is kind of what we need to do. And when I have people for years and years saying, hey, we need to slow down, and I want to get a chance to really see what the overall, what our whole catalog of developments are, and really see, okay, these are not built in Parkside, but they're approved, so there could be another 390. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking at, like, where have we approved? How many spots could, if there was magic, they're all approved, they could go up overnight, and there might be, 700 extra houses. I can't wrap my head around how many there are right now. Thank you.
Mr. Mills?
Well, since you graciously put me between adjournment and going home, I will not add anything else to the comments.
All right. Well, I don't have anything to add that hasn't been said already, other than congratulations to the Kansas City Royals. They had a fabulous year. They couldn't make it past the playoffs with the Yankees, but they gave it a heck of a try, and I'm really proud of them, and I'm looking forward to the next coming seasons with the growing talent that we have. And anyway, it was fun. It was a great year, and I want to congratulate them. So that's all I have. Do we have any reason to go into executive session? If we have none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we adjourn this Monday, October 14th, 2024 meeting of the Raymore City Council.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Abdelgawad.